everybody. What we're going to be working on today is just something that we'll be doing in our calculator, and that is plotting points in a calculator and then determining the function that would best fit that data. So let's just remember that when we're dealing with a linear function, oops, I had an eraser. When we're dealing with a linear function, we're dealing with some kind of a line. So the points, if we thought points maybe looked like this, we might say, hey, that looks like a line. A quadratic function, of course, is our parabola. And if we had gotten points that somehow looked like a parabola and maybe not quite, perfect, we'd say, hey, that looks like a parabola. It's a quadratic function. A cubic function, of course, looks like this with 3 directions, 1, 2, 3. And a quartic will look something like a W, but it may also look like a flattened out parabola. And remember, these could all be negative also, which would reflect them. So we're going to be doing this in our calculator. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of the x values from this first function, and we're going to put them in our calculator. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to hit stat, and we're going to edit a list. Now, if you notice in my calculator, I already have some data in there. So I have to arrow up to L2, hit clear and enter, go over to L1, hit clear and enter. Now I've cleared my list and I can start putting my numbers in. So notice these x values go up by 0.5 from -1 to 4. So you're going to hit -1, enter, -0.5, enter, 0, enter, and keep going by halves all the way up to 4. Try not to skip one. And at the end, make sure at the 4 that you hit enter. That's something a lot of people forget, and then the data doesn't match up because you might have too many y values for the number of x values that you put in. So I just hit enter after the 4. Then we're going to do the same thing in L sub 2. In L2, we're going to put our y values now that go with them. So it's like we're putting a point in. So -1, -10 is a point, and you can see that the -1 is next to the -10. So we're going to keep going. This one's going to take a little while because the numbers aren't in a nice little pattern like the previous. Make sure you're using the negative key and not the subtraction key. The calculator is very particular about that. So we're going to get all of this data in there, and then we're going to actually be able to tell the calculator what to do with it. First positive value here at 4.6 and 15. So notice we got to the end. The last point here is 415. If by chance you had more numbers in one column than the other, then you need to go back and check because you missed one. Okay, so what we're going to be doing with this data is we're going to be plotting it. So for the first time we do this, we have to set up our stat plot. So we're going to hit second, and if you notice above y equals, it says stat plot. Number 1, we're going to check. We want it to be on. We're going to be plotting points, and we're going to be using lists 1 and 2. Okay, we can do a lot of different things in our calculator. This is different kinds of statistics that we might want to use. But for right now, this is what we're doing. We're plotting points. And if you wanted, you could change this so that it plotted something different. I like this one because it's the biggest and easiest to see. So now we'll quit out of here. And now we're going to go ahead and plot the points. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and hit graph. And if you look at this, we can see the points that have been graphed, but we might not see all of them. So let's hit zoom, which is the middle key on the top of the calculator. And if you arrow down, number 9 is zoom stat. So we can, now that you know that it's down there at 9, you can just hit zoom stat and it will show you your points and it'll show you all of them. And I look at this and I say, this looks a lot like this cubic function we have over here, right? It goes up, it comes back down, it goes back up. So our calculator is going to do the work for us. We're going to tell the calculator to calculate the regression for us, which is going to give us the sort of like the line of best fit, but it's for, this obviously isn't a line. So we will hit stat, calculate, and this was a cubic function. So we're going to hit option number 6. Notice L1 were the X values, L2 were the Y values, and we just hit enter a few times until we hit calculate. So what this represents is the line Y equals, or f of X equals 1x cubed, minus 3x squared plus 1x minus 5. Okay, because the 1 goes in for the A, the negative 3 goes in for B, and so on and so on. So what I'd like for you to do right now is I'd like for you to pause the video, and I'd like for you to go ahead and try to put the X and Y values in and graph it. And then once you're done with that, start the video up again, and let's see if we're in the, we got the same thing, got the same graphs, plot the same points, and then we can talk about what that function looks like. So go ahead and pause this video. Okay, so hopefully you put all of your points in. And when I initially looked at my graph, it looked like this, and that's because it was still set from the previous X and Y, the domain and range. So again, I'm going to zoom stat so I can see all of my points. And when I look at this, I see it's going down, it goes back up, it comes down, and it goes back up. Doesn't that kind of look like a W? Which means it's a quartic function. So we're going to tell the calculator, stat, calculate, and if you look at option number 7, quartic regression, give us the equation that most closely fits our data for this function that looks like a quartic function. And so there we have it. So we would write our answer in as f of x equals, and all of those variables go in front of x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and so on down the line. So we would have 0.02 x to the 4th minus 0.03 x cubed plus 0.43 x squared minus 2.6 x plus 6.8. Maybe that's good enough. Okay, so I'd like for you to go ahead and do number 3. The time in hours is the X value, and the flow rate is the Y value. And I'd also like to point out that we have written directions on the next page in the packet. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody.